Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about bandsaws, specifically metal cutting bandsaws, and what you can do with them and how they've really changed the way that I work in the shop. So historically I've always used an abrasive chop saw. You know, they're loud, they throw dust everywhere. I recently tried upgrading to the diamond blade on the abrasive chop saw. It helped a little bit, but it's still really loud and takes a long time to cut, and then you got to clean all your cuts, and it was getting really old. So I asked a buddy if he had any suggestions on metal bandsaws, and he had actually upgraded to like the newer Evolution chop saws, which they still look like a chop saw, but they have a I believe it's a carbide tipped blade, and they spin slower. So they're not doing the abrasive, loud, they're going slower. And he had actually started using that, and he had this in his shop collecting dust. So we made a deal. I came over to his house and picked it up, and I have no idea how old it is. I don't care, I didn't ask. It was heavily used, still works pretty good. I put a grocery bag over the motor, and I took it to the car wash, and after I scooped out the metal, I blasted it off and got it a little bit cleaner. This one is a Jet. It's an old one. It's a HVBS-7MW, if that means anything to you guys. If you look that up, I believe its spec is called, it's a 7x12, and that's, I believe, how big the area that it can cut is. But this one is also water cooled, and that had an interesting story too. So when I picked it up, I obviously picked it up used, and there was some, and I don't remember what kind of oil it was a year ago now, but some kind of oil and water mixture in the tank underneath this thing, and it was nasty. It looked like curdled milk when I poured it out. So I got rid of that. I did a whole bunch of research, and I'm just gonna go through some tips and some parts that I ended up using on my saw after I did probably too much research. But I wanna save you guys some time. So first I'll touch on, this has totally changed the way I work in the shop. This thing is super quiet. It's water cooled for the cutting blade. And when it reaches the bottom of its stroke, it hits the button here, shuts itself off. It's really pretty nifty. They're a little bit more expensive new. I think they're like $2 or $3 grand right now, new. You can buy ones without the water cooling capability for like probably closer to $1,000. But having now used it, I think it's really valuable, and I use it a lot. It's made me less resistant to like cutting things, because you know, you gotta like do the earplugs or the earmuffs, and you're throwing sparks everywhere, and then you have to sweep and all this stuff. This thing cuts, there's little to no mess. It dribbles a little bit of water out. If you have this adjusted wrong, it kind of flings off this wheel, but not a big deal. You take a rag and you're good. When I pick up the metal, like if I'm cutting a piece of tube, when I pick up the tube, I just tip it towards the machine and drain it into this tray, and it goes into the tray and back down into the pump, and the pump pumps it back up and around. So what kind of coolant did I end up using? I didn't want to use whatever nasty oil was in there. It probably needed change. It's fine, but I wanted something a little bit more, I don't know, official, I guess. So I did a whole bunch of research, and I'll put links to all of this below, but I ended up getting this Master Fluid Solutions, this blue liquid, and it's concentrated, so you don't use that much of it. I think I put, I don't know, 2 cups to a couple of gallons, but this is called the Trim SC520. I'll put a link below so you guys can check it out. But so far, it's worked really good. And like a lot of these little drops, I'm kind of lazy, so didn't have anywhere to put them, so they're just sitting here. And these have been sitting here for months, and there's not a lick of rust on anything. So far, it's turned out pretty good. It seems to cut really well. And this is probably a tribute to the previous owner also, but this thing will cut, like, can you even, so this is a drop off of like a 1x1 tube, and that's maybe an 1/8 inch thick. So I measured wrong and a piece was too long, and I was able to chuck it back in here and cut off 1/8 inch at a time. So you can't do that with an abrasive chop saw. You just can't. So, sorry, my light's turned off. So that's something I couldn't have done before. So uses, I use it for all kinds of, most of my stuff is like small, square, round, stock, angle iron. I go through a lot of angle iron, stuff like that. Works great for it. You get it in there, you get it measured, you get it chucked in, and then you support it at the other end. So I bought some of these Bora, they're called Bora Portamates stands, but these are 3-in-1. So like you have the roller, so if you need to roll things in and out, you've got the multi-directional rollers, so if you're using a table saw or something, it can go either way. Or if you don't want it moving at all, it's got the stationary position there. All right, so that's some uses, how I used it. Covered the cutting fluid. Now let's talk about some repairs that I've done since I got it. I changed out the cutting fluid, that was good. The blade that's in there is still okay, but I ordered a second blade. I haven't even used it. I put it on the shelf. But if I'm in the middle of a project for a customer and this blade snaps, I'm out of luck until I get another one. So I went ahead and ordered another one. This one it's a 93 inch. And this one's an 8/12 TPI. So TPI is teeth per inch. So it actually varies in how many teeth it has. And what that does is it helps, like, and I don't know the specifics of it, but like one helps do the cutting and the other one helps do the clean out of your cut. And by varying the tooth spacing, it makes it a little bit easier for it to clean out the cut. So anyways, I did buy an extra blade. I haven't had to use it yet, luckily. But I did have some issues with it the other day. And hopefully you guys can see this. So I had this issue where the blade was actually popping out of here and coming down. And I couldn't, it was weird. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I ended up figuring out that one of these bearings on the backside had locked up. And because it was locked up and the blade was sliding on the bearing instead of the bearing rolling, it was causing issues. So why do I bring up this bearing? Well, if you look up, this piece right here is called the center shaft assembly. And I looked it up, and it's $53, and it's on back order, and there's no ETA. And this is like an older unit, but it's not that old, and there's a lot of newer units that use this part too. And I couldn't find the part, one, and two, I didn't want to pay that much for it. So I ended up doing a bunch of research. Again, probably too much research. But I figured out that this is an assembly made out of a couple different parts, and there's an E-clip at the bottom here. So this is actually two individual bearings that come off. And they're actually called, they call them like skateboard wheel bearings. And the part number, or the technical number for them, is a 608ZZ. So once I figured out that these bearings were a 608ZZ, I was able to get on Amazon and find these bearings for cheap. So I bought a 20 pack of bearings for 10 bucks. So these bearings were like 50 cents a piece. Really cheap. Took 10 minutes to put on, not even. Well, it wouldn't have taken 10 minutes if I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. So you just hold this, spin this nut off, slide this out, pull off your E-clip, put on your new bearings, put it all back together. You're good to go, and my blade hasn't fallen off since. So if you're new to the bandsaw world, you know, I couldn't figure out where the blade was coming out. I tightened. Let's see. This is how you tighten the blade. I tightened it, I loosened it, I couldn't figure it out. It was really weird, but I just had some bad bearings. So now I have 18 bearings left on the shelf to put in whenever I need it. So that takes care of that. Some other silly things that I've done since I got this saw, I put a magnetic mount here. This is just a magnet with a hook on it, but I put my sliding square on here, and that's so when I go to a 45-degree angle here, I can set the angle and check the angle, and the tool is just always with my machine. It's here, so when I need to change it, it's just, and these are like $5 or 10 bucks or whatever, so they're really cheap. And then if we spin around here to the back and I knock a bunch of stuff over, you see the back side of the machine. This is a cover you can take off to look at your blade. You can see the pan where all the water drains down there, and the water comes to the center hole, and then it goes down this tube through a like a colander thing, strainer, and then it goes into this tank, and then this pump pumps it out up the tube and back up to the blade. Pretty simple. The trim cutting fluid has served really well. I haven't had to do anything to it. I did have to top it off, and when I topped it off with distilled water. I don't know if I needed to do that, but the hope was that I could further reduce like rust and contaminants and stuff like that. So I topped it off with distilled water. If your pump's ever having troubles or whatever, it's probably low because this just evaporates over time. And then I guess towards my last tips, I've got a 3/4 inch wrench and a 9/16 inch wrench hanging on these magnet hooks here. These magnet hooks are super handy. I hang stuff all over the shop with these. I'll put a link down below to everything I'm talking about here, but these are super handy. So I always have the two tools I need to adjust angle here. And the last thing I want to talk about today is just the general usage. So how do the hydraulics work on these things? So when you push it up, this hydraulic cylinder holds it up, and you can see it slowly coming down, and when it gets to the bottom, it will push this switch down and turn it off. And then there's a coolant switch down here. So you can have this off and turn the saw on and cut without coolant if you want. I always cut with coolant on, so I have this on, but it doesn't come on unless the saw is also on. So I want to show you the hydraulic mechanism here. So this hydraulic cylinder has a lever and a wheel on it. The wheel controls how fast it goes down, and the lever turns it on and off. So when it's going this way, it's off. You can see it quit moving. And then when I go the other way, it starts going down again. And if I lift it up, so I have it on right now. So if I loosen this, it'll actually go pretty quick. And you want to adjust the speed based on how thick of a metal are you cutting. So you don't want it going like this at pretty much ever unless you're just freely letting it go down. So I'm gonna keep tightening this, And when I'm cutting, I have this almost all the way closed. Like it's almost imperceivably moving. It's going so slow you almost can't even see it. So right now it's on. I can turn it off if I need to like adjust something, and then turn it back on, and it will continue going down slowly. So, while we're talking about the bandsaw, let's have some fun with it real quick. So I've got like a 10-foot long length of chain that I welded together to build a chain link microphone stand that I had requested from a customer. So I got 2 bases here, and then I got this all welded together. I don't know how many of these I'm actually gonna do, because every single chain link requires 8 welds, and it actually takes forever. So not my favorite project, but anyways, I got it all welded together, and I thought we could go through cutting it real quick and get all of the good sounds, some tool therapy going on. So I've already got it marked with the chalk line. I got my stands. I'm gonna adjust them. These stands are cool because they're angled. So notice it's skinnier down here than it is up here. And when I first got them, I'm like, that's dumb. Why would they do that? Well, they did that because as you loosen the adjusting screw, it goes down on its own. Anyway, somebody smarter than me thought of that. So I usually put it roller side out, get it kind of close. I'm gonna slide this through here. Get to my mark. So you tighten it here. Get it good and lined up. Tighten down. Turn it on. Makes a little bit of a mess. Turn your valve on. This little valve right here controls how much fluid comes out. So you want it kind of like a film here. So I open up the valve, get it down, and then I tighten it up. This is pretty hard stuff, so I'll probably make it go pretty slow. So I stood here and watched it just because we're doing this video, but once you have this dialed in, you could just set stuff in here and have it cut and go do something else. I mean, obviously don't get too far in case something gets bound up or breaks, but it's just so much quieter and more user-friendly than a standard chop saw. Also, if you have a bunch of repeating cuts, see, like, it's just, and if this was tube, I would go like this. That way all the water runs back in there. But if you've got, a whole bunch of tubes, let's say you need to cut 6 pieces to the same exact length. you legit just take your 6 pieces all at the same time, get them all together, tighten it in, and you can cut 6 pieces at once. I mean, it just works really good. If you can't tell, I'm kind of a nerd for this thing. It's like my favorite tool in the shop right now. So anyways, there's your bonus content. This is my new tool, my new toy in the shop as of, I don't know, 6-8 months ago. It's really changed the way I do things. I really enjoyed it. It's made me a lot more efficient, a lot more accurate. It's not as loud, and it produces nice quality square cuts. There's less cleanup involved. It's definitely been a very good add to the shop. If you can find one used, that would be great. If you got to buy one new, you know, it's probably a good investment. If you make a lot of metal cuts, especially if they're at 90 or 45 degree angles, it's a good investment. And they don't go down to 0 the day you buy it. This one's probably 15 or 20 years old, and it still had value when I bought it. So overall, I think they're a good investment. Went through some tips and tricks and things that I used to fix it and make it better. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe. That way I'm motivated to keep making videos, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you.